Hey there friends, it's Laurie. Thanks so much for stopping by. Today I'm sharing 3 new home decor DIYs that you can display in your home year-round. I made the easiest pretty white flowers, a butterfly wreath, and a home sign that looks cute inside or even outside on a porch. I once again tried to keep the cost down using some Dollar Tree supplies, and as always, I hope you have fun crafting with me, so let's get busy. To make these pretty white flowers, I'm starting with a Dollar Tree microfiber long duster, and this will be the base for the flowers. I'll be attaching them together using the white Teddy Just yarn, and this came from the Dollar Tree as well. It has a little texture to it, and it blends in nicely with the microfiber. Using my scissors, I'm cutting about a 12-inch piece. It makes it easier to have your yarn cut first, and now I'm grabbing about a handful of the microfiber. I then used my scissors and I cut it off as close to the base as possible. I then pushed all the microfiber pieces together in a bunch. I centered it on the piece of yarn and then tied it tightly together in a knot. When I was done, I turned it over and pushed all the fibers to the top, and then trim them off neatly with my scissors. When I was done, I then made 2 more, and depending on how much microfiber you use will determine the size of your flowers. You won't need the yarn tails, and I snipped mine off. To make the stems for my flowers, I'm starting off with an everyday brown lunch bag, and you can find these at the Dollar Tree. I made the bag completely flat and then cut it into 3 even sections. When I was done, I opened one of the end sections up and then cut it down the center. I then cut the excess on the ends off. I marked the top of the bag at 2 inches, and then I ran a pencil line from that mark to the end. I followed the pencil line and cut it into a 2-inch strip. I then made 2 more. I'm making the stems by wrapping the bag strips around 3 pieces of 12-inch heavyweight floral wire. I added a dot of hot glue about halfway up from the bottom edge and attached one end of my wire. I then added a dot in the center and on the end and let the hot glue set up. When you're done, you will have a piece of the floral wire hanging over the end. I folded the bottom edge over my wire and then started twisting it from one end. When I had it tightly twisted on one end, I then added a bit of hot glue to help hold the paper in place. I continued working my way, twisting the paper as tightly as possible, and when I came to the other end, I added a dot of hot glue to help hold it in place. When I was done, I then made 2 more, so I had a total of 3 stems. I painted all 3 with sage green acrylic paint. Another option for the stems is to paint 3 of the Dollar Tree wooden skewers and paint them with green paint. I'm giving my flowers some leaves, and I'm using some that were left over from a floral stem. I pulled the plastic bottoms off of each and then painted both sides with the same green acrylic paint. If you don't have any leaves on hand, you can always cut some out of a paper bag, and those will work just as well. With everything painted and dry, it's now time to put my flowers together. I'm snipping off the extra wire on the stem, and I'm leaving just about a 1/2 inch. I then slipped the hole in the leaf over the wire and added some hot glue on to hold it in place. I took the flower head added some hot glue to the bottom where I attached it together, and then slipped the stem inside. It's so easy to change their color. All you need to do is grab your favorite acrylic paint and a paintbrush. Keep dabbing it on until you feel your flower has enough color, then set it aside to dry. I trim the ends off of my stems and then place them into a bud vase. And with that, these easy and inexpensive flowers will make a pretty addition to just about any room. If you're new to my channel, please consider clicking on that little red subscribe button below and leaving me a thumbs up. To all my returning friends, you know I think you're the best, and I can't wait to chat with everyone down below in the comments. Getting started, I'm using a 14-inch grapevine wreath from Michaels. One side was larger than the other, so I used a piece of floral wire and tried to tighten up the larger size to even them out. I found bunches of onion grass with butterfly accents at the Dollar Tree. I'm using one bunch of blue, one pink, one purple, one yellow, and one with soft pastel colors. Some of the stems have 2 butterflies and others 1. I'm snipping each about halfway down the stem. I'm now left with onion grass, and I'm snipping each of these off at the bottom of the stem. Because there was originally a butterfly on the top and I had cut the stem in half, I don't want the onion grass to fall off. So I folded the top end over to meet the bottom, and I gave them a little twist. I did this to each piece, and by doing this, it prevents the onion grass from sliding off the stem. As I was folding the onion stems over, I did notice that some of them have longer grass and some shorter. I've detached all of the butterflies, and I'm starting with the longer pieces of onion grass. I'm adding hot glue to the end of each stem, and I'm attaching them more towards the center of my wreath. As I'm adding each one on, I'm making sure they're all heading in the same direction. With those in place, I'm now adding on the shorter pieces, and these I'm attaching around the middle of the wreath. As I'm adding on the greenery, I'm not being super fussy where I place it. I'm just doing my best to hide as much of the grapevine wreath as possible. Now that I have the onion grass attached that came with the butterflies, I'm adding on a second greenery. I'm using 12 pieces of boxwood, and I found mine on Temu. I bought 20 pieces for $3.87, but you do have to check around on the website because the prices do change. I'm using 12 out of the 20, and I'm cutting the stems halfway down. I have them all cut, and now just like the onion grass, I'm adding hot glue to the end of each stem. I start by attaching one in the middle of the grapevine wreath, and then the next one more towards the outside. And then I just follow that pattern as I work my way around. I'm using boxwood, but the greenery is pretty much the background of my wreath, so you can definitely substitute a different greenery, and that should work just as well. With everything attached and in place, it's now time to add on the butterflies. Just like the greenery, I'm adding some hot glue to the end of each stem and attaching them randomly around the wreath. As I was adding the butterflies, I didn't have any set plan, but I did try my best to space them evenly around the wreath. I decided not to add a bow to my wreath, but if you do, make sure that you leave an open space. With all of the butterflies in place, I'm now working my way around the wreath and pulling some of the greenery up to the top. I know butterflies love flowers, so I'm adding in 2 of the pink spiked bunches from the Dollar Tree. Using my clippers, I snip them off about halfway down the stem. There are 12 flowers in all, and before I permanently attach them, I want to evenly space them around the wreath. I added 9 of the flowers around the outside, and when I was happy with their placement, I then used my hot glue gun to attach them. I have 3 of the spiked flowers left over, so I attached and evenly spaced those around the middle. The last addition to my wreath is 1 bunch of the white spiked flowers, and these came from the Dollar Tree as well. I snipped each away from the main stem and then attached them evenly around the middle of my wreath. With all the flowers in place, your wreath is complete and ready to hang, but I decided to add a sign in the center. I'm using a piece of wood from my Dollar Tree. If you can't find one, you can always cut down one of their wooden arrows. I measured the distance across the inside of my wreath, and I cut the wood just a bit larger, so mine measures 9 by 3 inches. I then gave it a coat of yellow acrylic paint. Instead of adding on the word welcome, I decided to change it up, and I'm using a wooden hello that I found at the Dollar Tree. It sits perfectly on the wood, and I gave mine a coat of periwinkle acrylic paint. Now that it's dry, I'm using some E6000, and I'm attaching the 2 pieces together. I added some onto the back of the word hello and centered it on the wood. After the glue set up, I tucked the sign into the back of the wreath, having the sides press against the grapevines. Once in place, I used my glue gun to help secure it. Now that I'm done, this pretty butterfly wreath is ready to welcome everyone to your home. To make my home sign, I'm starting with the wooden letters HOME. They measure 5 inches from top to bottom, and I picked mine up at Walmart. I want my letters to have a white base, so I used some white acrylic paint and gave the top and the sides a coat. I found this pretty tissue paper at the Dollar Tree and I love the greenery print, so I'm going to use this to cover my letters. I placed my letters down on the tissue paper, making sure there would be plenty of greenery when I attached the two pieces together. I then used my scissors and cut around the letters on the tissue paper. I trimmed it up close to make it easier to work with. I'm using my matte Mod Podge to attach the tissue paper to the letters. I'll also be using a piece of plastic wrap and a damp paper towel. To attach the tissue paper, I first added an even but generous amount of Mod Podge on the very top of the letter. I then gently placed down the tissue paper. Once I had it in place, I used my fingers to press it onto the letter. When I was done, I placed a piece of clear wrap over it, and as I worked my way around, I pressed out any of the wrinkles. By using the clear wrap, it will prevent me from tearing the tissue paper. I removed the clear wrap, and now I'm using a damp paper towel, and I'm basically dabbing it over the letter. This also helps cleaning up the wrinkles and removes any of that Mod Podge residue. I followed the same instructions for all of my letters and made sure they were completely dry. To remove the excess tissue paper, I'm using a piece of heavy grit sandpaper and rubbing it on the edge of the letter. The sandpaper did a great job clearing off the excess tissue paper, but when it came to the M, I wasn't able to get into the point, so I used an everyday emery board file, and that did the trick. I have all my letters sanded, and now I'm making a backing to hang them. Someone had thrown a bunch of new wood in the trash, so I stopped and picked it up, and I'm recycling it for this sign. I'm using 2 of the pieces. They each measure about 1/8 of an inch thick. They're each 3 inches in height and 24 inches in length. I'm attaching them together using 2 extra large craft sticks and a small craft stick. I added some E6000 onto the bottom of the 2 larger craft sticks and attached them in the center, one on each end. There's a little space in between the 2 larger craft sticks, and I added some E6000 on that as well. I added E6000 to the smaller craft stick and placed it vertically in the center. If you don't have any wood on hand, you can always use one of the longer Dollar Tree signs and work on the back. I let it set up overnight, and now I'm giving it a coat of golden brown acrylic paint. Now that it's completely dry, and this is personal preference, I'm using a piece of the heavy grit sandpaper, and I'm sanding around the edges and some of the flat area. Finishing up, it gives it a bit of a rustic vibe. It's now time to add on the word home, and I first like to find the letter's placement. I'm leaving a small space at the end to add on a vase, and I'm using this small plastic bottle from the Dollar Tree. I checked the spacing, and now using my E6000, I attached down the letters. While those set up, I'm taking the plastic bottle and using some thin white rope that I had on hand. I added a dot of hot glue to the bottom edge of the bottle and attached one end of the rope. I let it set up for a quick second and then started wrapping the rope around, and every so often I'd add a little hot glue to help hold it in place. As I was wrapping it, I wasn't super fussy because most of it will be hidden. When I had it wrapped, I then snipped off the extra rope. I'm adding it to my home sign by first adding a generous amount of E6000 onto the bottle. Then, to be sure it doesn't move out of place as it's setting up, I'm using a piece of painter's tape. It's the next day. I remove the painter's tape and the vase is securely attached to the sign. I'm using some of the Dollar Tree green sheer ribbon and making a simple bow for the top of my vase. I added a dot of hot glue onto the rope and attached the bow. You can add in any type of flowers to your vase. I'm using some Dollar Tree daisies. I popped off one of the flower heads and a piece of the greenery. I then made sure to snip off the finished edge. I added some hot glue to the front of the vase, attached the greenery, and then the daisy. Before I add the flowers in, I'm using a piece of jute that I had on hand. It measures about 36 inches, and I painted it the same color as the sign. I turned my sign over, added on a line of hot glue, and attached one end of the hanger. I cut 2 pieces out of the green sheer ribbon, and I'm adding one over the top of both ends of my hanger. It just gives it a little bit extra support. I then followed the same instructions for the other side. To finish up, I added a small bunch of daisies into the vase. Now that I'm done, this pretty home sign is ready to hang. Here we are at the end of the video, and I really hope you had fun making these DIYs with me. If you're new to my channel and you're thinking, hey, I'd like to come back and hang out with her again, don't forget to click that little red subscribe button below. If you're looking for more home decor or wreath ideas, I'll leave some for you at the end of this video as well as in my description. I hope you have a safe and an amazing day. And until next time, bye everybody.